Hello again, you're with BBC News. I'm Sally Bundock. Time now for the top business stories. The battle to keep China's population shrinks for the first time in 60 years as economic growth slows. We get an expert view on the outlook for the factory of the world. The battle to keep skilled workers, the latest jobless numbers in the UK are expected to reveal how tough it is for bosses as staff job hop. And we find out what are the latest consumer trends that will shape what we buy and sell in the years ahead. So let's now get down to business, and we start with our focus on China, where we've just had a slew of data showing how deep the impact of both the pandemic and its demographics is having on society and the economy. So data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows China's economy grew by 2.9% year on year for the last 3 months of 2022. That beat expectations. Reuters were saying the economy would grow by just 1.8%. For the full year, growth came in at 3%. That's far below China's official target of 5.5% growth. Excluding the year COVID hit in 2022, this is China's worst showing in nearly 50 years. Also today, the news that China's population has shrunk for the first time in more than 60 years, a change that is expected to have deep economic, social and political implications for China. Well, let's go to our Asia Business Hub. Katie Silver is there. Katie, tell us more.
That's right, Sally. So the big figure that we've gotten today is China's population is still 1.4 billion. It sounds like a lot, but the numbers are that there was about 850,000 fewer Chinese people at the end of 2022 compared to the same time last year. And the reason this is problematic is that they're seeing this not just as one short-term blip, but as something of a trend. Many population experts say, for example, this is going to likely usher in a period of decline in China's population numbers. And the reason for this being problematic really is what we call demographic decline. It's a problem whereby without a high birth rate and without the numbers in order to replace the population, the question is, where is the labour force, and therefore who is going to be able to make the goods to fund the ageing demographic that China is going to face in the coming years. We're also hearing, for example, that India now is predicted to overtake China as the world's most populous country by the end of this year. Now, us also as part of this data today, we've seen, for example, that China logged its highest death rate last year since 1976. Really, basically what this is meaning is that with this current surge in COVID cases as well, that is likely to further exacerbate this problem, and therefore we're unlikely to see a boost really when it comes to that side of things when it comes to China's population. We've also seen, for example, that the birth rate there is declining. For every, for example, 1,000 people, there's almost one birth less each year. And now China, with the legacy really that's come about as a result of the one-child policy, that was reversed back in 2015, but it's been so hard once this train is in motion in order to correct this, Sally, and that's one of the big problems for China's economy going forward.
OK, Katie, thank you so much. Katie Silver there in our bureau in Singapore. Well, let's now talk to Ginny Yan, Chief China Economist at ICBC Standard Bank. Ginny, good to talk to you. So what do you make then of the news about the demographics to begin with? As Katie outlined, going forward, this is not good news, is it, for China in terms of future growth?
I think this has been much predicted. However, obviously, the reality is this negative growth in population is certainly going to question how much China can continue to be the engine of growth for the global economy. So that stark statistic is very much a reality check. We've been very worried about China mainly because of the COVID-related impact, but certainly these pre-pandemic structural issues will come back to the fore.
And talk us through what those issues are.
Yeah, so there are many issues, of course, that predated the pandemic. And of course, one of those in the Asian population, declining productivity. Another, of course, is debt sustainability. Local governments have been very much worried about the sustainable revenue, particularly those who are reliant on land sales. Another issue that has really been worrying markets in particular about China is that the property sector is very much the engine of growth in China. And as we had that property sector slow down, we obviously had that slowdown impact on the China economy generally.
And in terms of the property sector, there was a lot said. We certainly reported extensively on the collapse of Evergrande, that huge property conglomerate. And that kind of flagged up, didn't it, just how fragile the sector is. What's being done about that?
Well, the contagion effect, I think, has been the fear. Not only pockets of developers and how much they can survive, but how sustainable their debt, particularly on the financial sector, will bring greater, impacts for the wider economy. Now, we have had very much a series of policy issued in the past month or so, really to lift, first of all, funding, the availability of bank lending and other forms of financing for these developers. And number two, also help for mortgage borrowers, so for buyers and home buyers, to help them to buy property market again. So a healthy growth in the property sector is starting to resurface, and we think that should at least, see the property sector bottom out already.
Now, we've mentioned growth of 3% for the year, way below 5.5%, which of course is the government's target. We know that that wouldn't be reached because of the problem with COVID. There's zero lockdown policies, etc. The outlook, what will the Communist Party do going forward to stimulate that kind of growth again?
We know that growth is once again back as the focus for 2023. Now, this set of Q4 GDP was actually better than many had feared. Of course, we knew the final months of last year was deeply painful, particularly given that very strict lockdowns and controls were still in place. However, that fast lifting of restrictions, faster than many had anticipated, very much, I think, gives some hope that very early on in the first quarter of this year, we'll see some recovery in activity, and many hope a consumption-led recovery. And that's what's been the outlook, a consumption-driven, sentiment-driven recovery at first. However, sentiment has really been outpacing fundamentals. What I mean by that is that we're not seeing enough data yet to show us that activity is starting to pick up, production starting to pick up, and of course we are having having to face a slowing down of the rest of the global economy.
Ginny Yan, thank you. Good to talk to you. Chief China Economist at ICBC Standard Bank.